All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is Thursday, January 23rd. We got another 9-game NBA slate to dive into in today's video. Like we always do, I'm going to dive into each and every one of these games. I'll give you my prediction on the side. I'll give you my prediction on the total. We'll talk about any other plays like player props that we like within the game as well. But as always, guys, keep an eye down on the pinned comment of this video. That'll take you to my final plays, so I'm actually rolling with myself for the day. If that does interest you, absolutely free down in the pinned comment. All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. I tell you guys I'm a dummy all the time. They don't suck. They've just been sucking. Get them down to -3 for more juice than Jose Canseco in his prime. Tell me you're new without telling me you're new. So don't go jumping down my throat in the comments, right? If you want to fade me, or if you do want to ride me, this still leaves a bad taste in my mouth, right? And remember, more chins, more wins. In terms of how we made out yesterday, yes, it was a positive day. Now, slightly. The graphic's going to look a lot better than it is, but realistically, those Malik Monk over in threes that we had and the De'Aaron Fox over in three, like those two plays being half units each, two of our bigger positions on the day, end up losing, kind of hurts us. But Derek White comes through for us. We ended up getting his alternate line at the time was 14.5 for +145. I believe by the time that game started and Drew Holiday was ruled out, Derek White's normal line was 14.5. So glad to be early there. And then the Timberwolves. This is a big one because we almost looked at the Timberwolves yesterday and said, okay, maybe, take them -2 or something like that. They end up winning by 1. So the fact that we just took money line, got a little lucky there. Pistons, Hawks under, and then Jalen Johnson under as well. But again, 4 of our 5 wins yesterday were quarter unit plays. We did have the half on the Timberwolves, but 2 of our 3 losses were half unit plays. So that's why it was a very marginal positive day. Still profitable, but I think it was like 0.05 units. So nothing that I can hit the soundboard or the ching, anything like that. But speaking of the soundboard, let's go ahead and hit it. Walker Kessler over 10.5 rebounds. Let's pump in some damn crowd noise for money man Frank there. I think Walker Kessler, what did he finish with? 15 rebounds, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. Walker Kessler last night against the Thunder. Yeah, 15 boards. So you know what? That deserves a cha-ching as well. If you guys don't know what the ride of the day is, it's simple. Just use that hashtag ride of the day in the comments. Give me your favorite play. I jump on board with one person's play each and every day and give you a shout out in the next video, win or loss. Now, if you win, we continue to ride with your play. So looking forward to seeing what Frank drops today. But if you lose, you do got to face the womp womp. We got to talk about it. So there's a little bit of risk involved. You still get the shout out, but nonetheless, it is there for you. And by the way, we also tweeted out over on our Twitter/X. It'll be popping up here throughout the show. We also put it on the Guy Boston Sports site. So make sure to go ahead and follow me there. In fact, there it is right there if you do want to see the ride of the day being posted. But all right, enough of that rambling. Let's go ahead and ramble some more. Let's jump into game number 1 here. Hit that like button, guys. Hit that subscribe button. Like I said, our back was against the wall last night. If we had a negative night, we'd be red for the season. We had the slightest of positive nights. So, we're still in the green, but still not really out of the woods yet, right? This January has still been pretty dicey, but let's see what we can do today. We got Indiana taking on San Antonio for game number 1. Now, this Pacers team has been playing some really good basketball. They're 8-2 against the number in their last 10 games here. 8-2 straight up as well. They played the Cavs twice in there, and they lost to the Cavs once and lost against the number, and then beat the Cavs outright and obviously covered that number as well. Other than that, they have played some mediocre teams, I guess. Philadelphia, now Detroit's playing good basketball. Maybe we give them credit there. Golden State, who I think we're starting to see isn't all that tremendous. Chicago, Brooklyn, Phoenix, Miami, and then they did catch an L to Milwaukee. So there's something to be said for their losses are against the good teams in a sense, if we want to consider Milwaukee that. But on the other side, San Antonio is kind of in the opposite situation. They've lost 7 of their last 10. Now they've played, a tough schedule. They've played Memphis twice, Milwaukee. They played the Lakers in LA, which obviously matters. They played Denver twice. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure where to come out on the team's strength of schedule as of late. Like I give a little bit of a leash to San Antonio's recent losses, but 3-7 is 3-7, right? So I think I do ultimately end up leaning towards the home team here in this one. But the reason being, they're playing better basketball, and I do think that, at home, this is going to matter for them. On the season here, they're covering 53% of their games, and one thing that I do like is if they get running and everything like that, I think that they could have some success, and if they play the isolation game, I think that they could, have some success against the San Antonio team, and maybe even, a Pascal Siakam look, because I could see them kind of scoring in that, not necessarily mid-range, but short mid-range area. That's where I kind of like them tonight, and also from the perimeter. This is an Indiana team that does not shoot that many threes, But if they can get their three ball going, that's how to get to the Spurs. Now, if you do like the Spurs today, it's very simple as to why you might like them. I think that you're looking at, a defensive team that is not all that bad at stopping points in the paint. So I even mentioned, Siakam getting down there and that type of thing. This Indiana team, in terms of points in the paint over the last 10 games, ninth in terms of frequency. So the ninth most shots in the paint. If San Antonio plays like they've been playing and prevents points in the paint, yeah, Indiana could struggle to score. But again, I do think some of the perimeter guys here could have a decent game when it comes to, beating the San Antonio team. So give me Indiana minus the 2.5 points. In terms of, where we'd go from a player prop, we'll get to the total in just a second. On the note of the perimeter, we'd look at anyone, I guess, that, could have some success from above the break, which would be Tyrese Halliburton, and also a guy that I'm liking today would be Miles Turner as well. Now, I don't know if the numbers necessarily say this, but in my recent memory, we've been able to play this fairly well, right? Is taking these centers that do have the shooting ability against, someone like Wembanyama. Right now, Miles Turner, I think he's going to hit his threes. His three line is at 1.5. I really do like this spot. Last time he played Wemby, it was last season. He had 4 threes, though. But why would you bring it down low against a guy that could send your stuff, 8 times in a game? And it's not like Miles Turner is the best around the rim. He's good, but he's huge. I think Miles Turner has a few more looks today from deep. So I like Miles Turner over 1.5 threes. Also Tyrese Halliburton, but what is his updated line right now? Thing I like about Turner is I think he'll have an uptick of quantity, and obviously quality as well if he's open a little bit, but he should have some, he only needs to make 2 of them. Right now, Halliburton's 3-point line is 2.5, and he hasn't hit it in 5 games. So a little more wishy-washy on that one, but still don't mind it. From a total perspective here, you do have 2 fast-paced teams, right? And to only have to get to 230 here, I could see it happening. So I'm going to lean towards the over. The San Antonio team, their defense last 3 games, right? 128 allowed to the Heat. They played Memphis twice, 140 allowed in one of those games, and then 129 allowed in another one. The Lakers, that was a low-scoring game, but, throw in the fact that, right before that, 3 more games, 121 to the Bucks, 114 to the Bulls, and 122 to Denver, right? So this defense hasn't been all that tremendous. And Indiana, their offense can play fast. The one thing I'm worried about is Indiana's defense starting to become legit, because they've looked good lately, but again, is it the strength of schedule? I'm not sure. I'll go Indiana and the over as well as those player props, but I'm a little bit more leaning towards, I guess, Indiana as well as Miles Turner than I am that total, because both of these teams can play some legit defense. They just don't do it consistently. But if one of the nights is like tonight and they play good defense, then yeah, this could be a very low scoring game. All right, we have Orlando taking on Portland. I do believe we have some good news for Magic fans here. Franz Wagner listed as questionable. Now, Jalen Suggs still out. Looks like Batadze's going to miss another game. Gary Harris, Cole Anthony, all questionable. But Franz Wagner, their team's second best player here, pretty undebatably, right? Looks like he could be coming back, and coming back at a very good time. This is an Orlando team that the injuries are just catching up to them, right? They're now only 1 game over 500 as they sit at 23-22. They've lost 7 of their last 10 games. I don't mind them in this spot because they can play well in the paint, and that's what I usually end up fading Portland for, right? So I like Orlando minus the points, especially if Franz Wagner plays. It's not like I'm looking at his player props or think he'll be that big of a difference, but that's got to be somewhat of a morale boost, right? And like I mentioned, this Portland team is, I really only look at it in the paint. They're very easy to break down, and they're coming off of 2 straight losses. Like, do we really think Portland's going to win 3 in a row? I don't think so. So it's almost like you have this Magic team that's going down, 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 down. At some point, they got to just bump up on the, blip on the radar, get a win, right? Portland, I don't think that they continue the success of climbing the ladder, right? So I'm going to lean towards the Magic there. I think that they can defensively cover this Portland team and make it really tough for them. DeAndre Ayton, I don't mind taking a peek at him and his under. Now, he did have a phenomenal game, and we almost rolled with it last time out, but now we're seeing a little bit higher of a points line, right? It's at, I think I've seen 13.5, which usually is sitting right around 12.5. I don't mind an under there. You're going to get good value as well. I think it's like, minus 110. I don't mind that. The one thing that I will say is that, this team, Gogo Batadze, Wendell Carter Jr., Jonathan Isaac, these are all, you never really know. It's a mixed bag, right? But that is what I'd look at, because I think that they can defend the paint fairly well. And DeAndre Ayton isn't fully healthy. From a total perspective, it's kind of weird. These 2 games were going spread, player prop, total. Usually it's spread, total, player prop. Anyways, I'm a psycho. In terms of what we have from a total here, I think that number is just a little bit like too low. Sure, this Orlando team plays super slow, and sure, Portland's offense isn't all that good, but, 212.5 just seems a little low. Like we saw Orlando play against, was it Denver, 113 to 100, right? Slight cash to the over here. And this Portland defense, like I said, isn't all that great. I could see guys like, even Franz Wagner, if he plays in limited minutes, have some success, as well as, Paolo Banchero. Like we should see some offense here. Is it going to be enough to get us to 213? Maybe not, but right now I can't really trust this Portland offense. I think that Orlando can score from the perimeter and down low. Give me a potential look at a Orlando team total over. Maybe that is something that we consider here versus, putting our eggs into the Portland basket. I'll tell you one basket we can put our damn eggs into. It's going to be over on Underdog, guys, with the AFC and NFC championship games coming around for playoff football here. They have a free square for you guys in the Bills and Chiefs game. Patrick Mahomes, 0.5 total yards in the game. If that hits, it cashes for you in your entry. Go ahead and check out this free pick. You'll also get a deposit match up to $1,000, which is absolutely psycho on their end. But you know what? It is what it is. You go take advantage of that right now. You can use the link in the description. I'll also put it in the pinned comment as well. But get this Patrick Mahomes free square over on Underdog. You've probably seen the commercials. You've heard me talk about it. If you have not tried it out yet, you might as well go try it out. It's a really, really cool app. Very entertaining, very easy. The interface is great. It's convenient. You can do it on your phone or on your computer. And they have a ton of cool promos that they drop on the weekends for these football games as well. So go check out Underdog, guys. That link will be down in the description as well as the pinned comment. Now let's jump back into these games. All right, Milwaukee taking on Miami. I almost chuckle every time I say Miami now because it's like, what are we doing with this Jimmy Butler stuff? You know what I mean? Like he plays, has a decent game, then he gets suspended because he missed the flight. Like the dude is being just an asshat right now. Like I'm confused as to why guys do this when they're on their way out of a team. Do they really think the teams that are trading for him are going to like this type of behavior? I feel like an old parent being like, you really respect that type of behavior? But it's true, right? Like, why don't you just try to end your days in Miami gracefully or peacefully? Like that's a team that has backed you for a long time, players that backed you. You made it to the damn finals. Like, I don't know. I just hate to see when guys get soured like this. But anyways, Milwaukee. So they didn't play yesterday. They were supposed to, right? Now they take on Miami. And this is a Miami team that should be getting Tyler Hero back. I believe he did miss last game. So we'll see how that one pans out. When he missed last game, they ended up getting blown out by Portland. The final score looks like it looks like it was a close game. 9 points, right? I mean, they were the 8.5 point favorites, but they were getting smoked for the majority of that game. So don't get fooled by that box score. Milwaukee, on the other hand, has won 4 games in a row. They're 7-3 in their last 10, 6-4 against the number. Head-to-head, last time these two teams played was mid-November, and Milwaukee won 106-103. I like Milwaukee minus the 7 here. I've seen plenty of spots in which, they're already bumped to 7.5. I just can't really see why this Miami team is going to be competitive against a Milwaukee team that, if Milwaukee's defense does show up, which it has been good in the paint, which is great, right? And then it's honestly been a lot better against the perimeter over the last few games. If their defense shows up, I don't see Miami having the electric offense that they necessarily need. The one thing that I could say is that, Milwaukee likes to isolate and are able to isolate, obviously, Dame and Giannis. This has actually been a Miami team that's been pretty damn good in terms of isolation. In fact, if we jump into the dashboard, I can show you what I'm talking about here, and I'll explain how to get access to this dashboard in just a second, but let me go through this. So both of these teams, very good isolation teams, right, in terms of defense. But Miami does not really isolate all that much, which is surprising when you have someone like Tyler Hero on your squad. But Milwaukee, 7th most in terms of frequency, 4th in terms of effective field goal percentage, and this metric that I like to use, score percentage. That is points off of isolation, and it even includes foul shots, so if you get fouled, right? Miami actually 6th best in terms of preventing points off isolation, 8th in terms of field goal percentage. Teams just don't necessarily run it on them, but from a percentage standpoint, they're actually pretty sound. Now, is that including Jimmy Butler's defense? It could be, it may be, but overall, I think that could be a path to Miami, but it's the only path that I'm thinking. Like right here, I'm thinking, okay, well, yeah, 10th in terms of restricted area. Miami almost allowing 70% from the field in the restricted area. Right here, you could see their lack of defense. Same thing if they're going to take a bunch of threes right now. They're not necessarily the best team in terms of the frequency, but you can even see here, Milwaukee, on the year, if they get back to basics, 6th most points from 3. This is a Miami team that's at best middle of the pack at defending the 3. So I do think that, if you can't stop this Milwaukee team on defense, and I believe they're going to have, if you can't stop them when they're on offense and you're on defense, and I believe that they're going to have a decent defensive night against you, all signs point to Milwaukee here in this spot. Now, I did mention that dashboard and how you can access it, that is for the Guy Boston Sports site members, guys. If you head over to our website, which is the same link down in the pinned comment, head over to the members area, right? Right now, we're not logged in. So if I go to the NBA dashboard, you're going to see, and by the way, this is the same site with all the final plays, you'll see membership required. Now, if I filter this too, obviously, with our membership access, on that exact same page, you get this each and every day, which is each game broken out. You can zoom in as much as you want. You can even print this out if you wanted to. Sometimes when I'm traveling, I like to do that, and then I write with a pen on it. Just feels kind of old school, but pretty cool. But yeah, just like we were looking at, you get each and every game pretty much broken out from what I deem all the valuable spots to look at in terms of stats. This is pulled from a bunch, like almost, I want to say it's pulled from like 9 different websites, being able to kind of come in here and have all this information from a visual perspective. Obviously, green is good, red is bad, that type of thing. You could see team matchups and their weighted advantage based on a formula that we have, as well as offense and defense shooting zones. Same thing on the flip side. Where do they shoot from in terms of frequency? We have their against the numbers. We have some player projections here for the starting lineup, defense versus position. A lot of those sites that you're using daily, right, and you're jumping from site to site to site to site, we have right over there over on the Guy Boston Sports site. So yeah, if that does interest you, consider becoming a member there. In terms of what we have from a total here, right? So this is sitting at 223. I think this one can get up to like 225, 226, which is a thin margin. But if this Milwaukee team, like I said, if they play good defense, I like them today. What if they don't? We've seen Milwaukee kind of lapse in defense, like when the Knicks dropped, 140, 145 on them, right? And the last time they did play, this was a competitive game. Now, did it get over this number? No, but at the very least, I think Milwaukee could put up some points today. This Miami team allowed, 116 to the freaking Trailblazers, 133 to Denver as of late. Portland, isn't a very good team. Denver doesn't play all that incredibly fast, even though they had at the beginning of the year. Milwaukee is kind of hitting their stride offensively, I believe. 123, 130, 122, 130 in their last 4 games here. So I think that they could put up some points. So I like the over, but I'm starting to talk myself into a potential look at maybe just a Milwaukee team total over, which let's see exactly what that updated line is right now. Over 113.5, I could see it. They've hit that in 4 straight games, like I said. Maybe that's a look. And then I don't mind considering someone like Giannis today, or even Dame. I don't think this Milwaukee defense is going to hold up. So you can pick your poison, or you pick your, superpower. Do you want the perimeter? Do you want the inside? I'd probably lean towards the inside performance today. But I will say, a little guy, and he's not so little, named Khalil Ware, does worry me about clogging the paint, because a lot of Miami's data isn't taking into account that monster down there. Forgive me if I choke in the next 5 minutes or so. I just took a sip of coffee, and I think it went down the wrong pipe. So I just inhaled coffee, got it in the lungs. Maybe that'll be good for the energy here. But we got Atlanta taking on Toronto now. Atlanta on a back-to-back. They just lost to the Pistons yesterday, right? They lost, 114 to 104. We like Jalen Johnson under, so we like to see that, and the game under, so that was good. Toronto coming off of a good win against Orlando. They were underdogs in that one. They were at home. Now, this Toronto team is a different beast at home and on the road. On the road, they've won 1 game this season. They're 1-19 on the road. I'm not making that up. 1-19. 10-13 when it comes to being at home. So obviously a lot different. Where I can give them credit is I think they're starting to play a little bit better basketball. Now, I'm not sure. I think we're still without Quickly, right? But they're sort of Grady Dick's emergence, RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl, having some good guys off the bench. I think they should get Agbaji back today too, but Boucher's giving them some good minutes. So there isn't like this clearest of paths to get to Atlanta, other than how much I really do just want to fade Toronto on the road. But Atlanta is on a back-to-back, right? And in back-to-back situations this season, 37.5% cover rate. So they are not covering overall in situations. So I'm a little hesitant to like Atlanta. I think, as crazy as it might be, give me Toronto and the under. I'll sound the psycho alert alarm, because I just, you probably heard me start this game, and it sounded like, don't touch Toronto when on the road. But I'm not saying they win this game, but 5 points may be a little bit too much. In terms of our projection here, we have this at a 116 to 113 game. So Atlanta wins it, but Toronto keeps it to within 3 points. I also, like I said, don't mind the under. This is an Atlanta team that just had an under yesterday. In backs-to-backs this season, they also have hit the over in just 37.5% of games. So I don't really see, them running up and down the court. Now, the one thing here is that last time they played was this season, and it was a blowout for Atlanta. They won 136 to 107, and obviously that's an over hit. So we're pretty much taking the opposite, and that was in Toronto, by the way. So we're taking literally the opposite of everything that happened last time. But I'd snag a potential, if you need to wager on this game, I'd snag a 5 while you can. I wouldn't be surprised if this line moves to like 4.5 or something like that. In terms of what we have from where these two teams can score, Atlanta was a good defense in the paint. Not so much anymore, and both these teams do like to score in the paint. So anywhere, I'm looking at Scotty Barnes and maybe now a Jalen Johnson. Also, don't mind a Okongwu in this spot. Rashashir, I can never say his name even though it's not that hard, is listed as out here. So you have Krejci in the starting lineup. I don't mind Jalen Johnson, even though he's coming off injury, even though we faded him yesterday, right, and took his under. I think he could have a better night tonight. And like I said, Okongwu seems like he could have the athletic edge, and not could, but will have the athletic edge over Jakob Poeltl, right? And he's hit, in his last 5 games here, he didn't hit it yesterday, but that's a really good interior defense in Detroit. But he's averaging 15.6 points per game. We'd only be looking for over 13.5 from him. So that could be a spot there as well. In terms of what we have from Toronto, they're actually been good defensively against centers, but again, I'm kind of hoping that he gets some putback opportunities and that type of thing. So I'd consider, Toronto, but maybe he gets Jalen Johnson on Toronto, but maybe he gets a Scotty Barnes treatment who just, likes to play defensive, just lock on him. But even Paolo Banchero had a good game against them, right? So Jalen Johnson's probably the move today if he does play. Again, he's just coming off injury, and it's a back-to-back, so we'll keep an eye on that. But if Jalen Johnson's line stays where it is, because I want to make sure he's playing, I think it's at like 19.5 right now, then I might consider that. But if it goes up to the 20s, which I wouldn't be surprised if it does, because it's not like I'm the first person to notice that this Toronto team is weak to that position and in the paint, then I probably don't end up touching it if it gets too high. Hey, real quick, guys, if you do want to further support what we got going on here and pick up some merch like this new one that we just dropped, the Just Bet It collection, head over to, obviously, that pinned comment. You can click store, GuyBostonSports.com/store. It's going to take you over there. This is some legitimate merch. Like, this t-shirt is actually good quality. It is not just a crappy blank that we get and slap a logo on it, right? So we have tons of cool stuff. My favorite products are the hoodies that we have, as well as the hats that we have. That's where I really think that we have some serious sort of advantage in terms of even just when you go shopping at normal stores and whatnot, like our quality is there. We test everything and put a lot of, money into producing the merch. So when I promote it and tell you guys to check out the merch, this is not a money grab. This is more so getting people to rock the merch and that type of thing. I'll put it in the merch bar right here on YouTube, so it's easy to find as well. I think some products should be popping up throughout the show, kind of in the bottom left of your screen. So yeah, go consider, guys. Or if you just want to go to GuyBostonSports.com/store, it'll take you to the Fade Me site and redirects right there. So yeah, if you do want to support us, go ahead and check out some of the merch. Really, I stand by the quality of our merch. It's not just slapping a crappy logo on and saying, hey, look at that, we made a sale. That ain't what we're doing. All right, next up, we're moving on to one that I do think is interesting. Now, the line at 13 would not deem this to be very interesting, right? But I honestly think it is. Now, if you look at the injury report here, you have Klay Thompson listed as out, but that's probably from yesterday. Both these teams are on back-to-back, so they have more time to submit their injury report, so we'll monitor that. I expect Klay Thompson to play. Jaden Hardy listed as questionable. Kyrie's listed in the lineup right now, but again, he might not play back-to-backs. But don't you think that's a little bit too much to be giving Dallas? I mean, yeah, they're losing games, but it's not like they haven't been competitive. And maybe I'm putting a little too much weight into how close they played that game against Minnesota, and not enough weight into how they just played, OKC. Or maybe I'm putting too much weight into that too. They just beat OKC outright. So OKC definitely has like the revenge factor and all that built in. But we did just see, like I mentioned, them win in this spot. Now, that was a game in which Shai Gilgeous-Alexander didn't play. So can we really say that Dallas beat them? Maybe not, but Kyrie had 25 points. I don't see why he wouldn't be able to contribute again today. If you look at this game from a, matchup perspective, OKC and Dallas, OKC is a great defense, but, they've been able to got on the perimeter so far in the last few games. Last 3 games here, 22nd in terms of perimeter defense. On the season, they're one of the best. So if Dallas can make their threes, then sure, I could see them scoring. Now, Shai's listed to start. I do think Shai could easily have a good game here. This is a team, in fact, we'll jump back into the dashboard to show you what I'm talking about, a team that likes to isolate, and Shai being being the number one, proprietor of that. 5th frequency, 7th effective field goal percentage, 2nd in score rate. Dallas, not exactly all that great, right? We got some orangey, reddish, yellow numbers down there. So, yeah, if Shea's on, he's going to make this one tough. But we're talking 13 points here. So, yeah, I'll sound the cycle alert alarm. I think that Dallas loses this one, but they can even lose it by double digits for all I care. We're looking at 13 points. I think this one could stay at least competitive. But, again, it is the Thunder. I could see someone being like, why don't we just bet it and forget it with the Thunder, right? Right, like that. I could see that. In terms of what we have from a total, I do like the over. Again, both teams are on back-to-backs. Dallas on a back-to-back has hit the over in 87.5% of their games. Their defense obviously kind of drops off as well. Their defense has been good this season, but it's starting to fall off, especially with some of these injuries. So if OKC has easy time scoring in isolation, in transition, anything like that, and Dallas likes to play fast in the second night of back-to-backs, I don't see why we wouldn't look at over 219.5. So maybe that's a spot that we can look at too, because that 219, now that I say it out loud too, them getting to 220, we don't have to worry about OKC's spread or Dallas spread. If this game has enough points and stays competitive, right, then we could see an over. So maybe that's the better spot to look and more smart spot to look. But like I said, I don't mind looking at Shea in this spot either. I do think that he should be able to isolate and get his, but his line's obviously going to be super high. We have him pegged in our dashboard here for 29.9 tonight. His line, 31.5? Let's get an update on that. I looked at it a little while ago. Don't imagine it's changed since, but always good to have an updated line. 31.5, yeah. So he had 50 something against Utah last night. He played plenty of minutes in a game in which, ended up being closer than people thought, but he should be fine. You know what I mean? Still young, and he plays well on back-to-backs to some degree. Guy's a bucket. All right, Denver taking on Sacramento. There is no denying that this Sacramento team has been playing some good basketball, right? They really have. I want to say ever since Brown was fired and whatnot, they've looked a lot better. But realistically, watching the Kings, they just seem like they kind of clicked. And that can definitely be the coach or the changeup of the coach. I get it. But to some degree, it looks like they've just kind of clicked. Malik Monk has hit his stride. You know what I mean? They've definitely clicked. I keep saying that word. And even the graphic last night that I saw, that there's 3 guys, the top 3 guys in clutch points this season are De'Aaron Fox, I think it was Jokic, and DeMar DeRozan. So the Kings have 2 of the most, by the numbers this year, clutch guys in the league right now in terms of scoring in the clutch. So that's pretty damn impressive. Now, speaking of those 3 names, we have them all tonight, right? We have De'Aaron Fox, we have DeMar DeRozan, we have Denver. This is a Sacramento team that I just bragged about. But on the flip side, they've only covered in 37.5% of their back-to-back games so far this season. This is a Denver team that, I don't want to say that they're starting to get things going, but they're starting to get things going. The reason I don't want to say it is because they haven't played the toughest of schedule. Going from their most recent game down, beat Philly, beat Orlando, beat Miami, lost to by 20 points to Houston, so first real team. Okay, so now they're 1-3 in their 3-1 in their last 4, but they're 1 loss against a real team. And then Dallas, they beat twice. They beat Brooklyn. They beat the Clippers. Lost to the Celtics. So it's when they play good teams, they're showing their true colors. So that's why I don't really want to jump into saying that they're worlds beating right now. But 8-2 in the last 10 is 8-2. You do have Sacramento on a back-to-back here. This is a tough one, right? The last time they played, this is a very close, high-scoring game. It was 130 to 129 in favor of Denver. Denver was on the road there. Now they're at home. Denver being at home and on the road, kind of similar, to be completely honest. And Sacramento, honestly, has played some really good basketball on the road this year. So I am conflicted in this one. If you like Sacramento, I really don't want to talk you off of it. But I think I'm leaning towards that big number at 7.5 in Denver. Again, they are, or should be, I should say, the more rested team. They are playing by the numbers better basketball, and they're at home. So, yeah, both these teams are cruising. I don't think that you can be wrong pregame liking either. Obviously, half the people will be wrong after the game, but give me Denver minus the points. In terms of what we have from a total, that is a really high number to me. I think this will be a high-scoring game. Like it was last time, that was obviously way over this number, but I could see this being almost like a 236 number max, right? You have Sacramento, who does play fast on the back-to-back, so they'll up it, but this Denver team, don't look now, but they're slowly starting to come back down to that Denver pace that I guess we all know and love, right? They were one of the faster teams just about a week ago, and now in the last 10 games, so I guess over a week ago, last 10 games here, 21st in terms of pace. So yeah, I think this Denver team's starting to slow things down. I'm going to lean towards an under, but it's a damn thin margin there because, again, I think this is at like 236, 237. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Denver says, okay, you know what, let's start to nut up and play some defense and, prevent Sacramento from scoring where they want to in the paint, that type of thing. So, yeah, give me the under in this spot. Player prop wise, there's a couple things also that I didn't know. Aaron Gordon is most likely going to play here, but I believe they're still sticking with that same starting lineup, right? Brown, Porter, and Jokic being in the front court, backcourt, Westbrook and Murray, which I do like that lineup. Couple spots that I'm going to probably consider would be taking a peek at Michael Porter Jr. I think that he's going to match up fairly well in this spot, and this is a Sacramento team that really does struggle on the perimeter. That is, why the Warriors ended up keeping that game close last night and whatnot too, but Michael Porter Jr., who has been fairly inconsistent, his line right now at I believe 14.5, even if it's at 15.5, I don't necessarily mind it. I think that he can go out there and hit some threes overall. And speaking of threes, like we can look at his 3-point line, even though he hasn't been scoring that crazily, right? In his last 10 games here, he's averaging 2.5 threes made, right? But he's hit it in 6 of his last 10. Last 20, he's hit it in 13 of 20. On the season, he's hit it at 24 of 43. So he might be a good candidate here to look for like maybe 2+ threes in Denver Nuggets moneyline parlay, or just Michael Porter Jr. over 2.5 threes in general. All right, Lakers, Celtics. This is where you guys you're allowed, you got permission to rag on me in the comments because I gotta go total bias in this one, right? No Porzingis and no Holiday last night. Not sure if, or not sure if they'll be playing today. They're still listed as out. Same with Horford. But again, they're on a back-to-back, so they do have some time to get their plays in or players in, in terms of having more of a delay to see what they'll specifically be designated for today. So keep an eye on the injury report there. But yeah, I like the Celtics in this one. I know I'm saying I'm biased. Love the Celtics, my favorite sports team, including all the other sports. But I do think that we can make a real case for the Celtics here. One, they're just 5-point favorites, which seems like it's a little bit too low. Back-to-back situations, they've covered in 57.1% of their back-to-back situations this year, which is very important to note because the Celtics stink at covering altogether, and we talked about this in a recent video. Why do they cover better, or cover more often, I should say, in back-to-back situations? Because they have lower lines. Like the Celtics team, if they played the Lakers in a standalone game, you're probably looking at like an 8.5-point spread, right? But because they're on a back-to-back, and it was a close game yesterday, a late game, West Coast trip, they finally have what I would consider a normal, consumable, digestible line at 5. So, yeah, I think that the Celtics should be able to play pretty well against this squad, make some threes against them. The Lakers in the last 10 games here, averaging from above the break, which is obviously where the Celtics shoot a lot of threes from, second most in the last 10 games frequency-wise. But the Lakers defensively averaging 38% in terms of field goal percentage against. That ain't all that great, right? So I do think that we could see some serious success from the Celtics from deep. And then the Celtics defense down low, which was a struggle of theirs, right, has started to look a lot better, especially when Porzingis came back. Now, if we don't have Porzingis, if we don't have Horford in there, obviously it's a little bit different, but I still do think that, with Porzingis, with Horford, they could give him some trouble. Now, can you really stop LeBron and Anthony Davis with those guys I mentioned defensively? Not necessarily. Also, LeBron and Anthony Davis listed as questionable, but I'm assuming they'll play because that's what they do, and it's really frustrating that for like 3 years now, they've just been constantly on the injury report. But I do think they can give him a fit enough to at least win this game by 5 or more, and I've seen some 4.5s out there. So again, we're going to want to keep an eye on the injury report. Wouldn't surprise me if the Celtics say, hey, we got to win last night, even though the Lakers are a rival and whatnot. It's like Jaylen Brown sits, Jason Tatum sits. Like, this league is annoying with that type of stuff. But yeah, for now, I do like the Celtics. I also don't mind the idea of a Celtics team total over. Like I mentioned, I don't really see where the Lakers successfully stop them. The only reason I don't like the full game over, I guess I would say, is because I don't know if the Lakers have the easiest of paths to scoring. Like, if the Lakers want to shoot threes, the Celtics team's very good defensively from a three-point perspective, and they've gotten a lot better in the paint. So where do the Lakers have all that success? I'm not exactly sure, right? So maybe in the isolation. So looking at some of these guys that do like to isolate for the Lakers. So maybe if we look at LeBron or something like that, that could be a move, because the Celtics, very good team defense. They actually have struggled this year against isolation. So maybe that's a spot to make a path to the Lakers scoring, but that's a lot smaller in terms of my opinion, like looking at a specific play type versus the shooting zone. So yeah, I'm going to lean Celtics team total over as well as them on the spread there. Player prop wise, I would look right back at Derek White, who cashed for us yesterday, but now with Drew Holiday potentially missing again, we're at risk of two things. This line being inflated, which is at 12.5 right now. I still do like 12.5, right? But if Drew Holiday comes back, that's obviously going to make it a little bit tougher to get there. That being said, he still should start and still should get minutes with Drew Holiday. But if we're at the risk now that Derek White finally has had a couple really good games, 2 of his last 3 he's gone for 20 plus. The dude had been struggling prior too. So at some point it's like, is he just going to go back to his old ways? Not exactly sure, but I don't mind him. I honestly might consider his points plus assists. Right now, that is at 16.5. I think that there is some value in that. He's hit that line in 71% of games so far this season, so that could definitely be a look, because this is a guy that can average, 10 potential assists on any given night, especially if Drew Holiday doesn't play. So Derek White's still my target here, but again, are we oversaturating ourselves to him? Because we did just cash big with him yesterday, had that plus 145 hit. Are we getting a little too greedy, I guess is what I'm saying? I don't know. Sometimes I believe in those karma type of things. And before we move on to the next game, I think it's fitting to say it here, guys. Go ahead and comment 34. I know it's a little bit over the 34-minute mark, but comment 34 if you made it this far and let me know. We've done this number before, so I really do want to see some of the names, but who comes to mind when you think of the number 34? I say let's do it in this game because growing up watching Paul Pierce and him and his rivalry against the Lakers and whatnot, with Kobe and Powell and Andrew Bynum, that was a great time. So Paul Pierce comes to mind when I think of number 34. If I go outside of the Celtics, I think I said last time it was probably maybe Hakeem, right? And then, you had Shaq who wore 34 for the Lakers as well. So who comes to mind when you think 34? Like I normally do, I'm not asking for who is the best 34 of all time. Who kind of jumps to mind? You know what I mean? Obviously Shaq, Hakeem, greater NBA players all time than Paul Pierce. But being a Celtics fan, 34, I think of Paul Pierce right away. Let me know in the comments. All right, Golden State taking on Chicago. This is another one where I know people are going to give me flack, but I do see both sides of this spot. So if you like Golden State, okay, I understand it. If you like Chicago, I also understand it. Now, Golden State should be able to score in the paint against the Chicago team. They're terrible at playing defense in the paint. Unfortunately for Golden State, they don't exactly prioritize scoring in the paint all that much. I mentioned the Celtics being the number 1 team in terms of frequency from above the break 3. There's only one team higher than them on that list. And it's actually not Chicago, which it was earlier in the year. It's Golden State now. So we should have some fast-paced, shots flying from the perimeter type of a game on our hands here. And Golden State on a back-to-back, I almost want to look at the road team in Chicago. I do think this Golden State team is going to navigate the ship well and get in somewhat of a good standing at some point. But Chicago, isn't the worst of teams, and they're in a bad stretch. It's almost like this matchup is, weirdly enough, perfect for them, to shoot their way out of a slump, right? So I lean toward Chicago. I do wish this number was a little bit bigger. Realistically, I'd put this at, maybe 3.5 myself. But, from our projection model that we have, the prediction here, it's a 114 to 114 game. So I don't necessarily agree with the numbers there that it's going to be a low-scoring game, because I would put it at 228. I think this one is an over type of a game, and we have Chicago kind of being able to make some threes. Now, in sort of just from a trends perspective, Golden State back-to-back games this year just covered in 16.7%. Yikes, right? Chicago with the rest advantage over their opponent, which they have tonight, right? They haven't played since the 20th. 75% cover rate. So yeah, Chicago's going to be my look here in this spot. I do know that they are dealing with some injuries. I believe we're going to look maybe without Kobe White, which is a big deal. I think that we can acknowledge that. But nonetheless, I still do like the idea of Chicago being able to shoot, whether it's Levine, even Big Vooch could be involved here. I think they should be getting Ayo Dosunmu back, so that could be good. But yeah, maybe Vucevic is also a player prop that we consider, or Levine. But Levine, we had him over 2.5 threes, right? We got it at minus 120. This is last week, almost a week ago, maybe Wednesday, and we got it minus 120. It closed at minus 210, and I was like, holy crap. We got such a good number. The dude had 1 3 against the Hawks. He had 5 in his last game, and now last time he played Golden State, which was a year ago, he's had 4. So I would consider Zach LaVine over 2.5 threes. I'd also consider Big Vooch right now. As I go to get his updated odds, I typed in big. Vucevic here for his threes, who obviously he's been crushing that all year, but he's been spotty lately. Just 3 of his last 10. Minus 115, I don't really mind that. He had 3 threes last time he played Golden State. The time before that, he did hit 2. So those are 2 guys that I would target there in terms of that. Now, Chicago's been shooting a lot more in the paint, which can hurt these guys. Levine's capable of getting to the paint. Vooch lives in the paint. But still, I do like the idea of them hitting their threes tonight. So Levine and Vooch over in threes. Give me Chicago as well as the over. All right, and we close things out with, admittedly, not my favorite game here. You have the Clippers, 13.5-point favorites. Washington in this one, Washington just obviously not a good ball club. Not surprising to anybody. We have them at the bottom of the list in terms of our power rankings that we do weekly and post on GuyBostonSports.com. This is one that I do have projected at 117-ish to 106. So an 11-point victory for the Clippers. The Clippers are on a back-to-back. I think it's worth considering. Washington, though, it's like, do you ever really think they have an edge at all? So I think I do lean towards the Clippers in this one. In terms of what we have from the injury report, that would be important to note here. James Harden may not play, Norm Powell, Kawhi Leonard, Zubac. If they just sit everybody, weirdly as it is, I might just say, screw it, give me the 13.5 on the Washington side of things, because now you have Washington, who does have some players like Jordan Poole, Carrington, Coulibaly, Kuzma, and Sarr. They're not the worst starting. I mean, they are, but Jordan Poole, Kuzma, two NBA sort of buckets, and even if you want to use that word, I guess I'm talking crazy here. But if they're playing against the entire bench of the Clippers and whatnot, then yeah, maybe you can make an argument. Now the Clippers, again, they played last night back to back. They didn't have pretty much any of those guys. So if those guys play in this game, then yeah, that minus 13.5 makes sense on their side of things. But if those guys sit out yet another game, I don't mind Washington. Now, kind of the last point to make here is that even without those guys, Powell, Harden, Leonard, Zubac, right? Without those guys, they kept it close with Boston. So maybe maybe that's a knock on the Washington getting the number. But yeah, it's going to really depend on, you can tell I feel very strongly about this game. It's going to really depend on the ins and outs here in terms of the lineup. Total-wise, like I said, I have this right around the 117 to 106 range. So that would come to pretty much very close. What's 117 plus 106? 223. So I'm going to lean towards actually an over, because, again, if they don't have their defensive guys out there, then maybe this goes a little bit quicker and plays faster. And Washington does like to play fast. At the very least, one thing we can give them credit for is liking to play fast, even though they're the least efficient team in the entire league. But guys, no player props either. Too many injuries in this one. But that's going to wrap it up for today's show. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button as well. Do truly appreciate you tuning in. Seriously, guys, do truly appreciate it. And I'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.